There's a storyline in the trilogy by C.S. Lewis where a character is battling for the mind and heart of Eve against an evil character who is so ideologically bent they'll use any strategy to deceive Eve. Up some notes. If I had a chance to talk with Lewis, I would thank him for bringing me and converting me to this idea of the nuanced beauty and the goodness. Now let me not get too wordy here. Out of the Silent Planet, written in 1938, Perelandra, 1943, The Hideous Strength, 1945, a darker book, but look at the years that he wrote that. Incredible. It's Christian allegory mixed with science fiction, but for many, Christian allegory is a Christian allergy, like an allergy that people have, where they just sneeze out. They don't want to have anything to do with these kind of claims of absolute virtues. But I would like to beg to differ that there is something good in an absolute idea. And this idea, I'll try to explain, flesh out, or both maybe, in looking at the characters. Let's go through them. And this won't be too much of a spoiler, just a summary. And if you want to pick up these books, they're for free, I think, in the public domain. If I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comments. Elwin Ransom, his role is the main protagonist of the trilogy. Ransom is a philologist. I didn't know what that meant. It's a language professor. I think maybe a linguist as well, and a Christian. He's modelled after Lewis's friend J.R.R. Tolkien. Now that's according to ChatGPT. I'm not sure if that's exactly accurate. Ransom is kidnapped and taken to Mars, to Malacandra in the first book, and Journey to Venus in Perelandra, my favourite, and plays an insignificant role in the battle against evil forces on Earth in the third book, which is the most heady and the conversational rich book, although the conversations on Perelandra and Silent Planet also are quite in-depth. The language is a little bit dated, but as we know, it's written in these years. So if I'm trying to convince you that this book is significant for you, well, I would say that when I was walking down the street in Caringbah, just getting off the train in Sydney, Australia, and it started raining, and I purchased this book later at a store that I'll go and work at, a cafe bookstore, a fantastic place to work. And I bought this book and I was reading it as I was walking, and I still remember this footstep I was taking. Because at the start of the story, Ransom is taking these same footsteps, going towards another world. The Professor Weston, the first malevolent character that is entering the story, he's a physicist, and nothing against physicists. This book is incredibly intellectual and brings out kind of that realm that Lewis lived in. What he's getting at here is that this person is very materialistic, very of a mindset of ideology and wanting to control. This one brings out the first idea for me of how much am I trying to control narratives, to control the idea of how I'm perceived, control others by looking down upon people or putting people in categories. And this definitely is the way that Weston looks upon the world. He looks at everyone below him. He controls people. There's no freedom or joy or experience of the good in him. Or maybe there is some, but it does become more corrupted, even to the point where malevolent creatures, or spirits, I should say, infect his thinking. And this is quite a very nuanced and dangerous, even theological topic to speak about, because people can often get up in arms about this. But there does seem to be a force that influences his ideological thinking that is just not of himself. And you could argue that through history, that there is some kind of bent force leading humans astray. And also on top of that, there is just a brokenness in human nature that allows ourselves to be depraved and hurtful to others and harm others. We see that in history. We see that, I think, if we honestly look at ourselves, and we also see that in our ability to judge other people so quickly. I know I'm getting a bit excited here about talking about these topics, but let's look at Divine. He's more of a simple character. He's unlike Weston. He's not ideologically driven, but he's corrupted and self-serving. He's quite cynical. Not that we aren't cynical, but there's a more of a just jumping on to the team, the winning team that he perceived. That turns out to be very much a losing eternal team. The J.R.R, they're a ruling angelic spirit that control the planets that speak to each other. Our planet, the Silent Planet doesn't speak to the other planets anymore. There's the Green Lady, Tinindril. The Green Lady is the Eve figure of Perelandra, by far my favourite of the characters, and she represents a Eve, pre-Eden fall character. And you start to think about how, or what it could look like to have free choice, which I do believe is essential in our experience of reality, that we have an absolute ability of free choice. And yet she hadn't experienced evil, the consequences of fall, but she always does have that choice in the story. Don't catch me out here and try to narrow me into a corner here, talking about free choice and free will. And if you're a Calvinist or is it Arminianist, the two different points of view. This is not the discussion I'm trying to make. Please don't try to box me in here. The Bent Osira, the Dark Eldil, they're a corrupted spiritual ruler of Earth, brings in this idea of the fallen angel, the Satan, as we call him or it. Then there's Jane Studdick in the last book, The Hideous Strength. She's married to Mark Studdick, who plays an incredibly depressing and important role, and there is some hope there. I'm trying not to spoil things. However, there's a cosmic battle on Earth between good and evil. And she has these preemptions or dreams of what is right and what is good. And this is very personal for me because I had, as a young person, dreams that I felt guided me towards discovering something of who Jesus is. Or you could argue, I think much more reliably, that God used that to draw me to himself. And we also have the Mark Studdick character, which I mentioned is, for me, a depressing character. He's a National Institute for Coordinated Experiments employee, and he just gets entangled into all the things that I think by conscience we know that we shouldn't get entangled into. The character of Edmund is maybe similar in Lewis's writing. And there's such a relatability to that we all get entangled into stuff we shouldn't. I will keep this video very brief and give that as the summary of characters, the summary of storyline that I love. Each book, the first two especially, carry a beauty, a prose. A personal note where I know that C.S. Lewis loved to go on seaside holidays when he was growing up. I think because where he was growing up in Belfast had so much outbreaks of typhoid and illness that his mum took him to the seaside for 2 months and he would just play in the ocean. And there's a description there of the main character, Ransom, being in the ocean. And for me, I relate to it very heavily, just the tactile and the beauty and the feeling. Every time I get in the ocean or go surfing, I remember that scene and try to enjoy that, not just catch the waves, but just enjoy the movement of the ocean and the waves and be thankful for that. Very personal, very subjective analysis of this. I hope this is helpful. If this has piqued your curiosity in some of these stories, I hope that you'd have a read of them, especially if you're not someone particularly inclined to read this form of literature. My name is Jonathan. Thanks so much, and blessings in the fullness of what that means, of the goodness and love that is inspired into this story going out to you wherever you are. Bye for now.